In 2023, demolition resumed in Cairo's City of the Dead. The justification, infrastructure; the result, cemeteries destroyed, shrines dismantled, family tombs emptied with no notice. What was once unthinkable is now protocol. It happens in the margins, at dawn, before the city fully wakes. But this didn't begin last year. Nearly 2 decades ago, the Cairo 2050 master plan imagined transforming the necropolis into a park, decorative, passive, emptied of the dead and the living. At the time, it seemed absurd. Today, it's simply happening, in small doses, quickly when necessary, silently when possible. In the span of a single life, a century feels long. But in the rewriting of history, a century is brief. What begins as an exception becomes a policy, and then a habit. The loss of memory becomes a feature of modernity, not its failure. There are ironies too precise to ignore. The tomb of Taha Hussein, the blind philosopher who never owned a car, now sits beneath a highway overpass connecting Muqattam to Salah Salem Street. He was spared the bulldozer, only to spend eternity under its path. Life and death are not opposites here. They are stacked, layered, cohabiting. At one point, more than 1 million of the living made their homes in this necropolis. Now, both the living and the dead are being displaced. The tomb of novelist Ihsan Abdul Qudus was emptied without notice. His family was given days to remove his remains. Other tombs belong to poets, historians, and public figures now barely studied, names absent from curriculums, now removed from stone. To erase their graves is to complete their erasure from the national memory, to unwrite them, to render them as though they never existed. This is not infrastructure. It is the destruction of the past dressed as development. And Egypt is not alone. In Saudi Arabia, the graves of early Islamic figures were demolished in the 19th and 20th centuries in the name of purification. At the time, the news was received in Egypt with horror. Today, it is Egypt issuing the orders. The machines doing the work are foreign. In 2023, Egypt imported bulldozers, primarily from the United States, Japan, and China. 8 units from the US, nearly $500,000 in value. 3 from Japan, 1 from China. The brands are familiar: Caterpillar, Komatsu, Hitachi. These are not neutral machines. They do not ask questions. They move forward. Graves are more than remains. They are contracts between generations. To sever them is to tell a people they have no history and therefore no future. Desecrating graves is wrong. It doesn't matter who signs the order. It doesn't matter who's in the bulldozer seat. Cairo is not alone, and this is not new. Across the world, the graves of the inconvenient are paved, plowed, or vanished. The justification changes: modernization, order, safety, neutrality. The result is the same: memory removed from the map. In 19th century Paris, Baron Haussmann cut wide boulevards through medieval neighborhoods, exhuming graves to clear space for imperial spectacle. He called it hygiene. Today it is called heritage. In Jerusalem, the Mamilla Cemetery was a burial ground for centuries. Muslim scholars, saints, and families were buried there. In 2008, it was cleared to build a museum of tolerance. Tombstones were found in construction rubble. No irony was acknowledged. In North Dakota, Native American graves were destroyed to make way for an oil pipeline. Protests were dismissed. Permits were honored. The pipeline moved forward. The dead did not. In Western China, over 100 Uyghur cemeteries were destroyed in just 3 years. The official reason was urban development. Satellite images show the truth: organized erasure, tombs replaced with concrete, empty squares, and propaganda parks. This was not accidental, it was procedural. In Saudi Arabia, historic Islamic graveyards were bulldozed to make way for luxury hotels and royal plazas. The tombs of the Prophet's companions and family members were destroyed. It was done in phases, quietly, behind fencing. Then it was complete. Nothing remains. In Palestine, graves are erased by occupation. In Jerusalem, in Jaffa, in Lid, cemeteries are cleared, sometimes overnight. New roads, parks, and police stations rise where the dead once rested. Their bones are displaced, their names rewritten or deleted. In the Congo, colonial forces cleared sacred burial grounds to lay railroads. In South Africa, the graves of black families were removed for white suburbs and mining projects. Each removal was rationalized. Each left no trace. This is not a local issue. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a global pattern, a silent consensus. Graves that anchor memory, especially memory of resistance, of independence, of lives unvalued by the state, are vulnerable. The logic is the same. Remove the marker, erase the meaning. What links Cairo to Xinjiang, to Palestine, to North Dakota and beyond is a shared modern belief that history can be discarded, that memory is negotiable, that the future is cleaner without the past. But desecrating graves is not modernization. It is violence. It is spiritual conquest. And it is still ongoing. Cemeteries do not vanish on their own. It takes machines. It takes policy. It takes silence. The modern bulldozer is not symbolic. It is a product, a procurement line item, a logistical solution. Caterpillar, Komatsu, Hitachi, names that appear across demolition sites, protest clearances, and occupation zones. These machines are not political, they're market aligned, sold without question, delivered on time. In Cairo, during recent demolitions, some bulldozers were photographed with their arms painted in the colors of the French flag. No explanation, just a mark of allegiance, unofficial, unexplained, unnecessary. The machinery speaks for itself, flags on arms, teeth in the dirt. Across the Middle East, destruction is ambient. The region absorbs wars, neglect, and now, intentional state erasure. What were once unthinkable acts of desecration are now performed by ministries. What was once called vandalism is now called planning. This is not a failure of governance, it is its function. From Baghdad to Aleppo, from Jerusalem to Mecca, from Cairo to Jeddah, the past is being cleared. And while memory is bulldozed, the region also becomes a market for machines, for weapons, for concrete, for surveillance. The same space that is demolished is then terraformed. Cleared ground becomes a testing ground. Bulldozers arrive first, then the renderings, then the headlines. We are told this is the future, but the dead were not consulted. In Saudi Arabia, they build a mirror wall in the desert called the Line. In Cairo, they pave over tombs and call it connectivity. In Gaza, they bomb cemeteries. In Jerusalem, they build museums on burial grounds. Here, demolition is branded as vision. Graveyards become corridors. Silence becomes infrastructure. Erasure becomes accomplishment. This is necropolitics, the management of death, not just biologically, but culturally, historically, spatially. It is not metaphor. It is design. Most tombs in Cairo are undocumented, passed silently through families. No deeds, no registry, no protection. Modern zoning frameworks do not acknowledge such memory, so they remove it. There is no press release, no ceremony, just dust, just bones unearthed and unnamed. The bulldozer has no morality. It follows torque, it follows commands, it moves forward, but behind it is a quiet structure, agreements, sales, plans, a ledger of forgetting, and sometimes the signs emerge, a tricolor on a hydraulic arm, a silent alignment, no explanation needed. Here, life and death reverse. The living are displaced. The dead are evicted. The present is sacrificed for the idea of a future. Development becomes destruction. Modernization becomes decay. Dust becomes policy. A region of tombs turned to markets. Bulldozers become signatures. Futures built on erasure. And no one is buried long enough to stay remembered. Desecrating graves is not modernization. It is conquest, slow, mechanical, and ongoing. Cemeteries aren't cleared by accident. They're cleared because it's cheaper than going around them. Urban plans follow cost, not care. What slows a project down gets removed. That includes graves. The dead don't own property. They can't negotiate. They take up space, and space has a price. In this logic, stillness is inefficiency. Memory is friction. So it's paved. Roads are drawn through where resistance is weakest. The poor, the voiceless, the already forgotten. And often they are drawn by generals, men trained to conquer, not remember. Lines on maps today look a lot like the ones drawn by colonial officers a century ago. Different flags, same tools. These aren't technical choices. They're political. They declare what and who is dispensable. A highway through a cemetery isn't just a shortcut. It's an order that nothing is sacred, that even the dead can be moved. If a republic forgets its dead, what does it expect to be remembered for? Graves don't move themselves, and generals don't act alone. Across the region, military governments call themselves republics. They control land like real estate, people like liabilities, history like a threat. These men draw highways through cemeteries the same way their predecessors drew borders through deserts, quickly, confidently, without consultation. They're supported by democracies that fund them, arm them, and pose for photos with them. Weapons, loans, bulldozers, arriving on schedule, stability, they say. There is no shortage of international partners eager to supply the machinery of silence. What's being erased is not accidental, it's structural. The past is inconvenient. It doesn't produce, it doesn't comply, it gets in the way. So it goes. A city that removes its dead to make room for roads is not planning for the future. It's clearing evidence. What connects Cairo to Jerusalem, Xinjiang, Mecca, and everywhere else these acts repeat is a consensus. That memory is optional. That stillness is waste. That history can be redesigned or deleted, and the public will adjust. There is no need for spectacle. The work is already being done, quietly, bureaucratically, and with impressive efficiency. This isn't about development, it's about control. The tombs weren't empty, they were removed. No monument will mark it, but some of us were observing, witnessing,